She was just another passenger, sitting quietly in row 21, headphones in, waiting for takeoff. But then the intercom crackled. The captain's voice, calm but urgent, echoed through the cabin. "Ladies and gentlemen, is there anyone on board who knows how to operate the controls?" Instantly, whispers spread. Passengers glanced at each other, confused, terrified. And in that split second, the flight turned into something no one could have predicted. The plane hummed softly as passengers filed down the narrow aisle, stowing carry-ons and adjusting seats. For most, it was just another flight. Businessmen scrolled through emails, families juggled restless children, and solo travelers like the woman in row 21 put on headphones, eager to pass the hours in silence. The cabin crew moved with practiced efficiency. Safety cards tucked neatly into seat pockets, belts clicked shut, oxygen masks explained in cheerful monotone. It was the kind of routine that felt comforting, a ritual that told passengers everything was under control. But beneath that calm surface, something wasn't right. When the captain's voice broke through the intercom, the tone was wrong from the start. Not the usual reassuring warmth, not the perfunctory welcome to Flight 228. It was steady, but carried a weight no one could ignore. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "this is your captain speaking. We are experiencing an unexpected situation. If there is anyone on board who knows how to operate aircraft controls, please make yourself known to the crew immediately." At first, people thought they had misheard. A few passengers chuckled nervously, waiting for the punchline. But there wasn't one. The silence that followed was heavier than the engines themselves. Heads turned, whispers grew. What kind of announcement was that? The woman in row 21 pulled off her headphones. Her eyes scanned the cabin, watching the panic ripple. Parents clutched their children tighter. Businessmen slammed laptops shut. And one passenger pushed the call button with trembling fingers. No one could piece together what had just happened. The crew, usually a picture of calm, looked pale, whispering urgently near the galley. Flight attendants aren't trained to fly planes. If the captain was asking for help, then something had gone very, very wrong. The woman in row 21 wasn't like the others. While the cabin around her buzzed with fear, she stayed unervingly still, almost as if the words on the intercom were meant for her. The plane leveled into cruising altitude, but the mood never stabilized. Every second that passed without further explanation felt like a countdown. Was the pilot sick? Injured? Worse? And if so, who exactly was flying the plane right now? Passengers began speculating in hushed voices. Some assumed it was a drill, though their instincts told them otherwise. Others imagined hijackers or a catastrophic malfunction. Yet, through the confusion, one truth was undeniable. The captain's call wasn't for show. It was real. And in that moment, row 21 became the most important seat on the aircraft. The woman in row 21 sat upright now, no longer blending in with the passengers around her. While panic rose like a wave in the cabin, her breathing was steady, her hands calm on the armrests. If anyone had bothered to look closely, they might have noticed she wasn't just another traveler. Her name was Elena Torres. To the people around her, she was just a quiet woman with a worn leather bag and a ticket bought like anyone else's. But Elena's story stretched far beyond this flight. Years earlier, before she worked an ordinary desk job, before life had weighed her down with routine, Elena had been something else entirely. She had once trained as a flight engineer in the military, a path she had abandoned when personal tragedy struck. She never told her co-workers at the office, never mentioned it to casual acquaintances. It was a part of her life that lived in the shadows, gathering dust like old medals in a drawer. And yet, on this night, in this pressurized cabin, those buried skills suddenly mattered. The captain's words still echoed in her head. If there is anyone on board who knows how to operate aircraft controls. Most passengers heard those words as a death sentence. But Elena heard them as a call she thought she had left behind forever. Still, doubt tugged at her. Could she really step forward? It had been years since she sat in a cockpit, years since her hands had adjusted throttles and switches under the weight of real responsibility. The The systems she trained on weren't the same as this commercial aircraft. What if she failed? What if stepping forward only made things worse? Around her, the whispers grew louder. One man muttered, "This can't be real. Pilots don't just stop flying." Another whispered prayers into clasped hands. The tension was suffocating. Elena's mind replayed the past. She remembered her first flight lesson, the exhilarating terror of taking control. She remembered the sharp voice of her instructor. "The sky doesn't wait for hesitation. Decide, or it decides for you." That voice echoed now. She unclipped her seatbelt slowly, the metallic click sounding louder than the hum of the engines. A few heads turned, curious, nervous. She stood, her posture steady, her expression unreadable. In that instant, the entire aircraft seemed to hold its breath. She didn't announce herself yet. Not to the crew, not to the passengers. But inside, she knew. She couldn't sit still while others feared for their lives. The woman in row 21 was no longer just a passenger. She was about to step into a role she thought she'd left behind. One that might mean the difference between life and death for everyone on board. And the captain was waiting. Elena's footsteps down the aisle sounded louder than they should have. Every passenger's eyes seemed to follow her, some filled with desperate hope, others with suspicion. Who was this woman rising so calmly when everyone else trembled in their seats? A flight attendant intercepted her halfway. "Ma'am, please sit down," the young woman whispered urgently, her voice shaky. Elena leaned close and replied firmly, "I'm trained. I can help." The attendant froze. For a moment, doubt flashed across her face, until another announcement from the intercom confirmed the urgency. "Ladies and gentlemen, we need assistance in the cockpit. Please remain calm." No one could mistake it now. The captain wasn't joking, and he wasn't in full control. The crew ushered Elena forward. As the heavy cockpit door unlocked and swung open, a wave of tension rippled through the cabin. Row 21 had disappeared into the restricted world at the front of the plane, the world that controlled everyone's fate. Inside, the truth was worse than anyone imagined. The first officer, the co-pilot, was slumped in his seat, pale and unconscious. The captain, beads of sweat rolling down his temple, was struggling to manage both sets of controls alone. His breathing was ragged, his eyes darting between dials and screens. He turned when Elena entered. Relief flickered across his face, quickly replaced by disbelief. "Who are you?" he demanded. "Elena Torres," she replied. "Former Air Force flight engineer. I can help you keep this plane steady." For a second, the captain hesitated. Trusting a stranger was unthinkable. But another glance at his co-pilot's limp body reminded him he had no choice. With trembling hands, he motioned her to the right-hand seat. Elena sat down, her heart pounding. The layout wasn't identical to what she had trained on years ago, but the fundamentals were the same. Throttle, yoke, instruments. Her hands found the rhythm instinctively, muscle memory whispering from a past life. "Stabilize us at 33,000 feet, the captain ordered. Her fingers adjusted the controls. The aircraft leveled. The alarms quieted. For the first time in what felt like hours, the captain exhaled. Behind them, the flight attendants whispered hurried updates to the cabin, though none dared reveal the full truth. To the passengers, it was still a mystery, but they knew one thing. Someone from their own ranks had stepped forward. Someone from row 21 was in the cockpit, holding their fate steady. And as Elena scanned the horizon ahead, her old instructor's words replayed in her mind. The sky doesn't wait for hesitation. This time, she didn't hesitate. The woman in row 21 wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was the lifeline of Flight 228.